Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Folks, grab a seat, because what you are about to hear sounds like a conspiracy theory, except every single word of it is true, verifiable, and sitting right there on the back of football cards for anyone willing to look. Sean Payton did not just come to Denver to coach a football team. He came to Denver to run it back. He came to rebuild piece by piece, position by position, the exact machine that once dismantled Peyton Manning in a Super Bowl and put a championship banner in New Orleans. And if that comparison holds up the way it appears to be holding up right now, Broncos country needs to sit down, take a breath, and prepare itself. Because this is not a story about a good football team. This is a story about a dynasty that has already been quietly assembled in plain sight. Before we get into the receipts, do the usual, smash that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe, because this channel lives and dies by that support, and this breakdown is one you are going to want notified for. Here is the thesis, laid out as simply as possible. Sean Payton does not build offenses the way most coaches build offenses. He does not just throw talented players onto a roster and hope the numbers work out. He builds in archetypes. He has said himself that football is chess to him, that every piece on the board has a job, a lane, and a purpose. The way a knight moves different than a bishop, and a bishop moves different than a rook. Study his championship rosters in New Orleans, and you will notice the exact same shapes of players show up again and again, just wearing different names and different jerseys. Now look at what he has assembled in Denver, and the shapes match up so cleanly it is almost unsettling. Start at the top with the version of Sean Payton football that actually won it all. The 2009 New Orleans Saints steamrolled to a 13-3 record, led the entire NFL in total points with 510 of them, topped the league in total yardage, and fielded both a dominant rushing attack and one of the best passing units in professional football. That team ended its year by beating Peyton Manning's Indianapolis Colts in the Super Bowl, a team that, if you were around back then, felt genuinely unbeatable. Denver fans lived that pain directly. Every trip to Indianapolis felt like a laugher before the ball was even kicked off. And then New Orleans walked in and dismantled that machine on the biggest stage in sports. That is the version of Sean Payton that Broncos fans should be dreaming about, because the pieces he used to do it are eerily similar to the roster sitting in Denver right now. Look at the quarterback. Drew Brees ran that 2009 attack, and the parallels to Bo Nix practically write themselves. Nix has already trained directly with Brees, spending real time with him in the offseason. The two of them reportedly staying in close contact ever since. Physically, Nix is bigger and more explosively athletic than Brees ever was, which fits, because the league has evolved and Payton has evolved right alongside it. But the connective tissue between them is that uncanny, almost supernatural refusal to take sacks. Brees got there through pure processing speed and anticipation. Nix is getting there through elite athleticism and escapability. Different tools, same outcome, and as Nix continues to marinate in this offense, that trait is only going to get scarier. Now, the receivers. New Orleans had a 6'4", 225-pound possession monster in Marquise Colston, a player who racked up 70 catches, over 1,000 yards, and 9 touchdowns during that championship run, a big-bodied threat who specialized in toe-tapping the sideline and winning contested catches in the end zone. Denver's answer to that archetype has been standing in the building the entire time: Courtland Sutton, a genuine top 100 player in this league according to his own peers around the NFL, not some hometown exaggeration. Sutton is Colston. Payton has openly talked about wanting his receivers to look like they just stepped off a basketball team bus, all long frames and imposing catch radiuses, and Sutton fits that description to the letter. Then there is the speed. New Orleans had Devery Henderson, a yards after catch nightmare who averaged nearly 18 yards a catch for his career and consistently looked wide open thanks to pure explosiveness. a 5'11" burner who piled up over 800 yards and nearly 16 yards a reception in that title year. Denver went out and paid a premium to bring in that exact archetype this offseason, trading a package built around a first-round pick to pry Jalen Waddle away from Miami. Waddle is a former top 10 draft selection, has already put together 3 separate 1,000-yard seasons in his career, and has posted video game numbers in explosive plays and yards after the catch since entering the league. Some analysts questioned whether the price tag was too steep. It does not matter. When you already know the archetype works because it won a championship once before, you pay the price and you do not blink. There is also the forgotten piece, Robert Meacham, a name that rarely comes up when people list off great Saints receivers, but who quietly abused defenses by sneaking behind them play after play. His size and speed profile lines up almost exactly with Troy Franklin, right down to a near-identical frame. A receiver who arrived at the professional level a little light and has publicly stated his own goal is to add roughly 10 pounds of functional muscle before this season. If Franklin does that, the archetype completes itself perfectly. And notice how that Saints passing attack refused to feed one single player. Drew Brees threw for close to 5,000 yards that year, but the ball was distributed everywhere. Nearly 1,000 yards to Colston, close to 1,000 more to Henderson, over 700 to Meacham, and that is before you even get to the running backs. Compare that to an old-school Denver mistake, a version of this franchise that once force-fed Brandon Marshall 15 targets in a single game and called it an offense. That is not this era. This era spreads the plate around, and that is by design. Speaking of running backs, this is where the pattern gets almost eerie. That championship Saints team ran a 3-headed backfield rotation, and Denver has built the exact same structure this offseason by adding Jonah Coleman into a room that already features R.J. Harvey and J.K. Dobbins. Reggie Bush that year piled up 700 yards from scrimmage, not through big rushing totals, but through his lethal work as a receiver out of the backfield. A joker piece who created matchup nightmares. That is the R.J. Harvey blueprint. A player who may not need 15 carries a game to be the most dangerous weapon on the field. Pierre Thomas racked up 1,000 scrimmage yards that season in a complementary role, which lines up neatly with what Denver is hoping to get out of J.K. Dobbins. A back who might not be built to absorb 15 hard carries across 18 games, but is more than capable of hitting 1,000 yards when the workload is shared intelligently. And then there was Mike Bell, a name Broncos fans should actually recognize since he once wore a Denver jersey himself, who chipped in 650 yards that season as the rotational piece. 3 great backs sharing one workload, staying fresh, staying healthy, and producing all season long. That is not a coincidence. That is the Sean Payton running back formula, and Denver has rebuilt it piece for piece. The tight end room tells the same story in 2 different eras. Early in his Saints tenure, Payton had a bruising, physical tight end in Jeremy Shockey, a player who ran through people more than around them. The prototype blocker/receiver hybrid. That role in Denver looks a lot like what a player such as Adam Troutman brings to the huddle, a battering ram who can still catch. But as the years rolled on in New Orleans and Jimmy Graham arrived, the tight end position shifted into something else entirely, an athletic mismatch weapon who essentially played wide receiver out of a three-point stance. Payton has already drawn that exact comparison to some of Denver's current tight end pieces, name-dropping Jimmy Graham when describing Denver's newer additions in that room. Evan Engram slots naturally into that description, an explosive athlete who wins in space more than he wins in the trenches, while the blocking, grinding half of that equation gets handled elsewhere in the room. Denver did not just find one tight end. It stacked multiple archetypes at the position simultaneously, which is exactly what a Payton-run passing attack wants to have available. Even the near misses in New Orleans line up with pieces on this roster. The 2011 Saints squad, A team many thought was destined for a championship before some brutal and at times downright suspicious officiating and heartbreaking finishes got in the way, still produced more matching archetypes. That version of the roster had Darren Sproles, an undersized change of pace weapon who barely got traditional carries but wrecked opposing defenses in space on screens and checkdowns. Watch him in isolation, and his game translates directly to what R.J. Harvey brings to Denver's backfield. In an almost too-perfect twist, Sproles is reportedly set to join the Broncos coaching staff this season as an intern, meaning the actual human blueprint for that running back archetype will be standing on the practice field teaching it in real time. It barely feels fair. And then there is Michael Thomas, once nicknamed the slant god for his surgical route running and his uncanny ability to always appear open on that one specific route. His game translates almost directly to what Denver has already gotten flashes of from Pat Bryant, a receiver who saw real early down usage during the postseason run before injuries interrupted his rookie campaign, including being the primary early target in a difficult road environment against Buffalo before those injuries forced him out. The tools are already visible. The role has already been defined by Payton's own history. Stack every single one of these comparisons on top of each other, and a picture emerges that should make the entire fan base sit up straight. This is not guesswork. This is not a hopeful highlight reel stitched together to manufacture hype. This is a coach who has demonstrated repeatedly over more than a decade of Saints football that he wins by installing specific player archetypes into specific roles, and who has now gone out and methodically acquired those exact archetypes in Denver. From the quarterback position all the way down to the third running back on the depth chart. A defense that is already considered a potential top 3 unit in professional football does not need a top 5 offense to win championships. It just needs enough. And if this offensive machine even approaches half the ceiling of those championship-era Saints units, this is not a conversation about one Super Bowl. This is a conversation about a run. A dynasty built quietly, methodically, and almost entirely out in the open, waiting for the rest of the league to notice before it is already too late. So here is the moment where this channel needs your help. If this breakdown connected some dots you had not put together before, that is exactly the goal, and the only way this kind of deep, obsessive research keeps happening is if you show up for it. Hit that like button right now before you scroll away. Drop a comment with your own take, your own player comparison, or just your gut prediction for how far this roster goes this season, because the comment section is where the best conversations on this channel actually happen. And if you have not subscribed yet, do it, because there is a lot more of this breakdown culture coming, and you do not want to miss the next one. Broncos country, the blueprint is already built. Let's find out together if it delivers a banner.